You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey, welcome back to the show. You are listening to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. And I'm your host, Steve Adams on Mighty Blue. Now, today's show is going to be a little different than normal. We don't have just one guest. We have a whole load of them. As many of you know, I've been following a bunch of hopeful thru hikers every year since 2017. That year we followed Addie. The following year it was RTK. Then it was me in 2019 as I podcasted from the trail. We all made it. And I started expanding my reach. Fast forward to this year and we started with 17 people as Erin Conrad went with her mum. I've been keeping in touch with them all in the past 6 months, covering their preparation, their fears and their hopes. All of them are either on the trail or back home at this stage of the year, so I thought it might be interesting to catch up with them all to let you know their current status. Consequently, over the past few days I've interviewed all of them, other than the 3 who were on last week. However, I will be updating their progress as well this week. I've edited some of the conversations for brevity. You all know how us thru hikers can go on given the chance. As to air all of our conversation would have taken a couple of hours. I may dip in and out with some minor commentary from time to time, but we're just going to see how it goes. So let's get going. And I'll first mention the people who we already know aren't still on the trail. Part of this, by the way, is to demonstrate that hiking the AT for about 6 months and getting to the end is about a 20-25% chance. All these people wanted to do this so badly, but as we all know, fate, life and desire changes over time. Samantha Galbal was the first to drop out. In fact, her plans for the year changed and she was out very early on. Erin Conrad and her mother were so up for it when we spoke, but the realities of how tough the trail can be came up pretty quickly for them and they were back home in just a couple of days. Then Sonny Blackwell was forced off when an old shoulder injury from a neck vertebrae fusion a few years back flared up and he had tingling and numbness in his hand. A visit to the neurologist confirmed that Sonny's through was done for the year. He hopes to come back and get it done next year. Finally, Steve Quartercamp had a heart issue and pretty soon ended his hike for the year, so we were down to 12. We heard from Joanne Flagg, Jessica Lang-Wright and Dale Shotkowski last week, and they were all going well. Their quick update is that Joanne has just gone over Killington in Vermont on her flip-flop. Jessica is north of Petersburg, while Dale has hit the Shenies. All 3 of them are going well, so that's good news. That leaves 9 hikers to speak with today, so let's meet the first. I met Betty McInerney at last year's Woods Hole weekend, and I've been thrilled with her no-nonsense attitude on a hike so far. So last Thursday, I caught up with her again. Here she is.
Good morning.
Hey Betty, it's Steve. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Well, I'm good. But you texted me yesterday, a little bit of a surprise for me, and you got a new plan. So tell us what's going on and where you are now.
I'm sitting back in Vermont.
Okay.
672 miles down, and I've changed my plan. Another 445 to go for this year. Uh-huh. And instead of being a thru hiker all in 1 year, I'm going to do it in 2.
And are you good with that? Are you happy with that? Was this something that I know you got injured a little bit, and I know when we last spoke, you told me how you didn't like the Grayson Highlands, and I wondered whether there was something behind that more. Was the injury exacerbated in the Grayson Highlands?
I'm not sure where it really began. It was sporadic at first. Yeah. And it was only on a really steep incline. And it was when my left leg was in the back position and, collapsing on itself when you're just ready to push off.
Oh, wow.
I would get a really sharp pain right across the ankle, like you had just tripped on a wire.
Ooh, nasty.
Yeah, I don't think it was a twist. It was that real tight compression as you're about to push off. then I said, okay, just push off with the ball of your foot instead of, letting your whole foot touch ground. And then
Sure.
I started to aggravate calf muscles. And I
Yeah.
haven't had any muscle stuff, from the beginning. So I think I twisted something in there. I'm not sure. I'm headed to the doctors in about an hour, and I'll find out.
Well, I was about to say, have you seen the doctor? You actually haven't seen the doctor yet, then. So,
No.
Firstly, what's it like to be back home?
It was great. I arrived home at about 1:00 in the morning. Went and gave Bruce a quick kiss, and the dogs were the ones that were bananas. They wouldn't leave me. It was like, where have you been?
Yeah.
And it's good. It's nice to cook. It's nice to eat real food. But I'm thinking about all the people that are out there. The people that I met.
Yeah, sure.
And still texting with them, and with my plan, I think I'll probably see some of them, while I'm out there.
Well, that's nice. Why would that happen, though? Where are you actually going to go when you go back?
I've done 672, and if you divide it in half, it's about 1,100 miles.
Sure.
So I'm going to go to the New York-Pennsylvania border, and I will hike New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Vermont, and that will bring me a little over 1,100. And then next year, I'll go back down to 672 in Virginia and do Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland, and then jump up and do New Hampshire and New Hampshire and Maine.
So you still intend to finish at the top of Katahdin?
Yep.
Ah, nice. So, How are you feeling, Betty? You feeling? Is this a good decision for you?
It is a good decision. When I got home and saw how hard it had been for Bruce, at first I think last year his worry was about me, but it was, leaving him with bills, a construction project that was going on, dogs, house. It was just too much. I was selfish, and this is a compromise that will work for both of us. So it's good.
Talk to that. The idea, and we've raised this a few times in the show recently, this is a selfish thing to do. There's nothing wrong with, by the way, if you got the buy-in, and I know Bruce gave you that buy-in as well, but it's you who realised the selfishness of it as well. You don't feel bad about doing it though, do you? I mean, you must feel elated that you've done as much as you have.
Oh, I absolutely do. And so does he. Right. It's just that there were a lot of jobs around here that I did, paying bills, managing a rental property, and there's a bunch of stuff. And all of a sudden, with no education, no warning, it was all in his lap. And he works part-time. So the house and the dogs, it was just too much.
So I'm sure this is something that occurs to a lot of people when they're out there. How would you say people, if you were to think about it again and to go again, because you're going to be off again next time as well, would you prepare for your absence differently?
Yes, but I think the solution that I've come up with that's going to work for us is I'm going to go and do 150, 200 miles and then come home for a week or so and do some stuff around here and then go out and do another 150, 200. So that will work for both of us.
All right. And I know you're happy to be home, of course you are. And I know everybody, when they come home, they're always happy to be home. But I guess you miss the trail as well, and you miss the people, I suppose. Is there anything that you miss in particular? Yeah, I bet it's not the crappy food you have to eat when you're out there, is it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't miss the rain and, setting up and breaking down in the rain. That was miserable from day one. Yeah. But it is simple. You've got one long sleeve shirt, one short sleeve shirt. Everything is simple. In your tent, everything is, in a nice little order. So that kind of structure was very cool. I enjoyed the trail. So I missed that, looking down and seeing all the flowers and taking a million pictures. And
Sure.
but I'm still going to do that.
So you've had this great experience, you had this great adventure, and you're going to continue with this great experience and great adventure. I'm so pleased that you are going to go back this year and then finish it next year, because if you left it till next year, perhaps you wouldn't go back and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think you've taken away from this, and you talked about structure just now, simple structure, do you think you've taken stuff away from this you could incorporate within your life?
Yeah, it's kind of selfish for me this time that I can do less and be content. I'm 69. I'm still working. I was still working while I was out there partly.
Nice.
It's okay to slow down. It's okay to smell the roses as you go. And, as I'm out there, I'm thinking of other adventures that the two of us can do. Taking the train back was a gas. The Amtrak, it was comfortable, and Amtrak has that USA Rail Pass, and I think you can go to like 10 different stops. What a great way that would be to see the country. It's all been good.
Well, look, I don't want to lose touch with you, Betty, and I hope that when you get back out, we can follow you again for the rest. Let's carry on this journey together. It seems silly not to. So whenever you're ready to go out, just drop me a line. I know we stay in touch anyway, but drop me a line, and we'll get you back on to tell everybody what's going on with you. Okay?
Yeah, I still have 440 miles to do this year.
Yeah.
I'm far from done.
Great. Well, I'm so pleased you worked out something that works for the two of you. Send Bruce my regards, and we'll speak soon, okay?
Okay. All right. Take care.
Thanks, Betty. Cheers. Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So that was interesting, though totally the sort of pragmatic approach I'd expect from Betty. She has a plan that will work for both of them, and she'll finish at Katahdin next year. Again, though, an injury contributed to this decision, but she's going to be back out there for another 200 miles here, 200 miles there. I'm so pleased that she and Bruce are at peace with it. This trail makes you think on the fly, and Betty's certainly done that. With a bit of luck, we're going to be hearing from her again soon. Now, somebody who just seems to be having a stroll in the park is Mark Carpenter.
Steve?
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great.
You are in Duncannon, I understand. Is that right?
Yes.
You're right.
Yes.
So how many miles have you got under your belt now then?
I believe it's around 1162.
Wow, that's pretty.
That range.
That's something. How you feeling?
I feel great. I feel like I'm getting better.
Oh, really? Any aches and pains?
Actually, it's getting better. My feet were hurting, and ankles were hurting, and they seem to be getting better. So
that's awesome.
I'm happy about that.
And you've done something because you've sent me some great notes. You picked up a chair, which I love, of course.
Did.
Yeah. Tell me about why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? And tell everybody what a difference it makes.
Yeah, I took your advice. I went and found a chair, and it is wonderful. It's nice when I sit and take a lunch break.
Yes.
I sit with a nice view, very comfortable, and I even set it up in my tent.
Really?
And I'll do some reading. Yeah, I just either before I put my sleeping pad in there, or I'll just turn the sleeping pad on its side.
Right.
I sit in my tent, even when it's raining, and I'm just comfortable, and it's great.
I couldn't do what I would have thought that would make a hole in the base, the base of the tent.
Well, the tent, the chair that I have has like rounded plastic on it.
So is mine,
so
but
protective.
I'm sitting on it with 250 odd pounds, so maybe that's the difference.
That's the difference.
And you said that your sleeping pad sort of could put in Shenandoah National Park. What happened?
Yeah. So
didn't have your chair on it, did you? Didn't have your chair on it, did you?
I did not. Like in the middle of the night, all of a sudden I woke up and I was really cold, and I realized I'm on the ground.
Oh,
and
gosh.
So I quickly put some air in it, and it lasted maybe 3 to 4 hours.
Oh,
but
wow.
I was fortunate. My son was going to join me in a couple of days.
Right.
So I only had one more night of getting up 3 or 4 times, pumping air into it.
Oh,
and then he brought me a new pad. So that was nice.
And I know that our mutual friend Hugh Ickrath turned up and gave you some trail magic. He's been great to people who've come through. So tell us about that.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. Hugh had reached out. I think he felt a little sorry for me on the last update that I gave. And, we were having a little trouble connecting, but we were able to meet up. And I know he was in the class of 2022.
Yeah.
And so he met me on the trail and took me out for dinner, and it's much appreciated.
Took you out for dinner?
Trail angel.
I'd have to have word with him. He only gave me a bloody sandwich.
No. Yeah, he treated me to I think it was Apple House restaurant. So they got some of their famous apple cinnamon donuts, which were great.
And you did meet Blue Sky. You actually sent Nancy sent me a picture.
Yeah. I was hiking. He came to that Quarry Run shelter, and what a beautiful.
Tell everybody about the shelter. Describe it.
Okay. So as you approach the shelter along the trail, the maintenance crews have manicured these green tunnels.
Yeah.
And then you see the trail right along the shelter, and they just paid attention to in so much detail. They have hanging flower baskets. Yes. They have little garden gnomes, little turtles. It's just beautiful. And then most impressive to me was a swing right by the shelter, and I just sat there and just loved it. And it was great. Very, very nice.
Have they still got the little stream in front of the shelter, just decorative stream that goes along? Yeah.
They just so much detail there. It's just beautiful. It's like a little paradise.
And you mentioned, by the way, Nancy tells the story of meeting you as well, and the bear in the privy that night, which is hilarious, by the way.
So,
hey, me again. I cut Mark off there because he was about to tell a story that Nancy Farrell, or Blue Sky Nancy, is going to tell later. So let's move on. And you already mentioned trail magic from Hugh, but you also got some pretty. In fact, you sound like you've been really lucky with some great trail magic from some other people.
Yes. Yeah. So I was been hiking by myself, and came past the Miles Burn cabin, and there's a little climb up a hill. Came to a dirt road, and there was a white pickup truck sitting on the road, and I crossed the road, and a gentleman gets out of the truck, and he says, "Excuse me, are you a northbound hiker?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Did you start in Springer Mountain?" I said, "Yeah." And he hands me a white envelope, and I open up the envelope, pull out a letter, and it says that there's trail magic at Shippensburg Road, and tell them you are the lucky one because they're going to provide you a surf and turf dinner.
Oh my God! Why were you the lucky one? You were the 15th to come that day, or what?
Yeah, I was. He said he's been waiting there a few hours, and I'm the first Nobo from Springer Mountain.
So
so I get to the Shippensburg Road, and there's a nice spread of like a formal card table with plates and silverware, and tell them I'm the lucky one, and they help me wash my hands and get me ready for dinner, and ask me how I want my filet mignon and shrimp.
Yeah. By the way, listeners, that does not happen a lot.
No,
if at all.
I guess. Yeah, this couple, Denise and Marie from Chambersburg, this is the 3rd year in a row that they've provided the filet mignon and shrimp dinner. It was fabulous.
Good Lord. You're making this sound like a walk in the park. You really are. And everybody knows it's not. You were even successful with the ice cream challenge, weren't you?
Yeah. And that was my concern. I had this wonderful filet mignon and shrimp dinner the same day I was going to do the ice cream challenge.
Silly not to.
And I was successful with the ice cream.
How long did you take?
I took just over 50 minutes.
Oh wow! Oh, you lasted. It took me 27 minutes, and one of the kids did it in just a few minutes.
Didn't have a filet mignon dinner.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I didn't have that. And you even went into Harrisburg for a 0 day to watch some baseball at the stadium.
I did. I had to get my baseball fix.
So, well, hang on. Before you do that, is this? And did you plan all this? I know you obviously didn't plan the trail magic, but it does seem to be a breeze for you right now. Things are going great, which is obviously I'm obviously pleased for. But even fitting in baseball, is this combination of things to do? Deliberately looking to find different things. Is that really helping your mental side of things?
Yeah, I was trying to keep a little bit of my normal life, while I'm doing the trail.
Sure.
And, I enjoy baseball, and I haven't had a chance to either go to a game or even listen to some games just because of the signal.
Yeah.
And so I just was checking the schedule, and it kind of coordinated with my hiking schedule and their baseball schedule. And so I needed a 0 day, and that's why I went to Harrisburg.
Do you know what? I think that's a really good thing. So seriously, to tell people that, you don't have to give up everything in your life to do this. You can fit other things in. And I know you're going to be off trail again soon. You're going home for a wedding.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that, leaving the trail behind?
I did it once before, and it's, I was able to adapt. And it's always great to see family and friends.
Yeah.
But coming back, it's tough. It's tough the first few days, just getting, get back in the woods and back in my tent. But I'm determined that I'm going to finish. So I will.
You certainly sound like nothing's standing you at the moment. But we're always aware that our next step could be our last. There's always that possibility. So I'm sure you're staying careful as well. So you're past the halfway mark. What's next? I'm trying to think. What's your next? What are you looking at next? The next town? Oh, I know what's next. You got the bloody rocks.
Yeah.
right out. Okay, I tell you. Let me guarantee you this. Next time we speak, and I hope it's not too long actually, but next time we speak, you will have had the experience of the rocks, and however great Pennsylvania is, and it is great for lots of different reasons, they are tough. So just be aware of that. Wherever you put your feet, it's going to hurt you. So how are your shoes going, by the way? Because I changed my shoes. I changed. Oh, that's good, because I changed my shoes going into Pennsylvania, and I changed my shoes again going into New Hampshire. So I'm glad you changed them. Yeah, you're going to need them.
Yeah, when I went into I stopped at the REI in Mechanicsburg on the way to Harrisburg.
Right.
And but you know what? I was very emotional giving up my shoes because I love those shoes.
Yeah. Yes.
I wanted to send them home, and then as soon as I sent them home, I'd probably get home and throw them away.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm so glad you're having a good time. You seem unflappable right now, and I can only wish you well. And just keep on trucking, and we'll catch up soon. Okay.
Sounds great, Steve.
All right, buddy. Take it easy. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Man, he's having it all and really living the dream, isn't he? How awesome about his surf and turf and his baseball game. I've noticed that many hikers are all business and just pushing through to make it to the end, pretty much as soon as they can. Mark's just letting it unfold and allowed himself to be open to experiences. Listening to him, he may very well have cracked the code. Now, Carl Bergquist. I hadn't heard from him for a while, so I kind of knew that his news wasn't going to be great. Here he is.
Hello?
Hey, Carl. Steve Adams.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
Well, I'm better than you by the sound of things. Where actually are you now?
I am in South Carolina at my vacation, my retirement home.
Okay, so retirement suggests one or two things. One of which is retirement from work, and one is retirement from the trail. So, what's actually happened?
It's retirement from work.
Okay.
and presently retired from the trail.
Okay, so we haven't spoken for a little while, and when that happens, it's often because the people are no longer on the trail and they don't want to reach out. But that happens from time to time. So you sent me a message about what had happened to you. You had two pretty bad things happen to you. So talk us through them. What happened first? About you got frostbite.
Yeah, well, so the first couple of days were really cold. Very cold at night. I slept fine, stayed warm, but the third day it was windy and, a severe wind and very cold, probably temperatures in the 30s or 40s. We were walking in a very exposed area along, ridge lines and such. We were heading up Blood Mountain and I had gloves. It's not like I didn't have gloves. I had gloves, apparently not warm enough gloves. And I'm using my poles. I even tried hiking without my poles to try to keep my hands in my pockets. But,
Right.
The terrain didn't really lend itself for that. Anyways, that night, I could not feel my fingertips from about my first knuckle to the end of my finger.
Nasty.
And I was clenching my hands and trying to warm them up and holding warm water and, heated some water and kept it warm, and then wrapped them up inside my quilt when I was sleeping. And like I said, I slept fine in the cold. I wasn't cold in any way. But the next day, again, severe winds, very exposed. Anyways, after the fourth day, we came down into Neal's Gap.
Sure.
And I think it was the fourth night, including coming the initial day up the approach trail. We stayed at Woods Hole Shelter, and it was so windy. We got to the shelter. That's the section where you're supposed to have a bear can. And we were the only two there. And I put my ground cloth, I just had a sheet of poly that I put down under my tent usually, in the shelter just to keep my air mattress from being on the wood floor.
Sure.
And when I spread it out, it literally, the air coming through the floorboards lifted it up like a flying carpet about 2 feet.
Wow. Oh, dear me.
We're like, oh, so much for being out of the wind. We got through the night. We got up the next day and we hiked into Neal's Gap. But again, that was the final, third of the ascent of Blood Mountain and then down the other side.
Sure.
And we had rented a cabin that day, me with 3 other folks. I got warm, took a shower, tried to warm, but I couldn't feel my fingers. I was having trouble using the buckles on my pack. When you
Nasty.
can't, if you can't feel that you're pinching the buckle,
sure.
I literally had to watch everything to see if it worked. So I got a little concerned. I talked to my wife, who's in the medical field. I called my doctor. I sent him a picture, and my fingertips were kind of gray. And he said, if it's going to be cold, then tomorrow you can't do it. You're risking permanent injury.
Sure.
I said, well, are they, can you tell if they're going to come back? And he says, well, they're not really discolored. He says they should grow, the nerves should regenerate, but it depends on each person. He says, that's about an inch. He says that could be 4 to 6 weeks for them to recover.
Wow.
And I was like, you're kidding. I thought there'd be a treatment to soak them in warm water and stuff I was doing, but something, a little bit higher level science. He's like, no, you need to really be careful. If you're not careful here, this could be permanent loss of permanent damage.
So what'd you do?
So I thought about it. I said, well, I'll sleep on it. So I slept on it. I got up in the morning thinking, being indoors and heated, took a hot shower, and I looked at them again. I looked at the temperatures the next 2 days. We're going to be below freezing. That night it was 12 degrees. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, I'm not, 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm like, I'm not going to stay here by myself for, 3 or 4 days till the weather gets warm. I'll fly home and see how I feel and come back. So I flew home and went to the doctor, and they said, yeah, don't be stupid. So I got off the trail.
Right.
And it literally took the full 6 weeks for me to get my feelings back in my thing.
Wow. But then you said you got back on because you then got an intestinal virus in Virginia. What happened?
Right. So
Me again. I cut off the talk about the intestinal virus because we know what an intestinal virus is, don't we? But I then moved on to what Mark's plans were going forward. Let's get back. So what do you intend to do? Do you intend to give it a one and done, or are you going to think to come back next year, or are you going to carry on doing it just by sections? What are you going to do?
I'm thinking sections.
Okay.
Definitely sections. Short sections. Because of some other medical issues I have, I was worried about food and digestion issues to begin with.
Right.
So, but I mean, the first 4 days, 5 days, whatever I did in Georgia, I didn't have any issues related to that.
Well, look, I'm glad you at least gave it a go. And sometimes it just doesn't work out, and it isn't meant to be, I guess. And you gave it a shot, and obviously I appreciate you coming on and let me know. I know it's always a disappointment because this is something you've been looking forward to doing for some time. But thanks for coming on, and we'll try to stay in touch and see if you do get back on and how it goes. Okay.
I'll certainly let you know. Thank you, Steve.
Take it easy then. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. So Carl's gone. Can you imagine getting frostbite? I cut quite a bit of our conversation, but I really thought it was important that you should know how physically challenging it can be. And of course, I thought back to Dr. Lynn talking about frostbite in her series we did earlier this year. So you never know, and you should really be aware of the risks. So Betty and Carl are no longer pursuing a thru hike this year, while Mark is tearing along with gourmet meals and baseball. As we always say, everyone's experience is different. And talking about different experiences, let's hear now from Mary, Marks and Wiley.
Hello.
Hey Mary, how are you?
Hi, Steve. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Are you standing in the middle of Duncannon right now? Are you outside?
I am.
Have you been in the Doyle yet?
I have not, but I think I'm going to have time to check that out.
Yeah, damn right. Yeah, and is Wiley still going well?
He is. He's doing very well.
That's fantastic. Now we spoke to each other obviously when you came back to Trail Days and I met you. What did you think of Trail Days?
Oh, I loved it. I'm so glad I made that effort to, because I was in the middle of the Shenandoahs and drove down. I'm glad I went to see all the vendors and all the other hikers having such a good time, and what a lovely little town. Yeah,
it is. And you saw me.
I did see you. I did. Yes, you were the main attraction.
I met 7 of our class of 23 there. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. That made me so happy to even be able to meet a few of them.
Yeah. Now, but we didn't record them, but we're recording now, obviously. And you've sent me a list of 1-2 things that's going on. You took Mother's Day off. That's kind of nice. Did they actually come to you, or did you go back home?
No, they came to me and brought all my animals to visit and brought me a car. Yes.
How many animals did they bring with them then?
Well, my other standard poodle, Oliver, and then I have an African gray parrot and a cockatoo.
Oh my God! So how did the poodle react around you? Did it go crazy?
Wiley was so excited to see him, and he just wanted nothing to do with him at that point. I was really surprised, but yeah, he was very happy to see us, but didn't really play with Wiley like Wiley wanted him to.
Right, now going through this little list, the one that stands out to me, of course, is the half-gallon challenge. Did you actually try it?
I did. And failed miserably. I failed miserably.
You wuss.
The night before, it sounded so good because I had hiked 16 miles the day before. Right. And the next morning, I thought, oh, yes, I'm going to have that ice cream. Well, I was there right when they opened at 9 a.m. and I probably didn't make it halfway through.
Oh, dear.
It was fun trying.
Yeah. Well, I tried it myself and first time, and it took me 28 minutes to finish. But yeah, but some of these kids were doing it in about 10 minutes. It was ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't know how they do it. Now, also, you've been to, well, let's go through these things now in a bit more order.
Okay.
You refer to Tinker Cliffs, which is obviously part of the Virginia Triple Crown.
Yes.
I love Tinker Cliffs. I presume you did as well, as you pointed that one out. So tell us about Tinker Cliffs.
Oh, it's just, you're walking, I guess, on a ridge and just all these cliffs for miles. It's beautiful. Yeah, they should get more attention. They absolutely
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Did you have decent weather for your McAfee Knob picture?
I did. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful day. Yes, a little cloudy, but I mean, blue with little clouds.
You can see why it's an iconic spot, though, can't you? It is such an amazing spot, especially when you go back to take the photos as well. You see, the ledge itself on photos looks much more scary than it feels like when you're on it, doesn't it?
I don't know about that. it was pretty scary. I wouldn't go to the edge.
Wouldn't you? I was going to wonder if you dangled your feet over. Oh, right. I wonder if did Wiley go near the edge?
Nope. He did not. No.
That's funny.
No,
and you talk about wildflowers. I know a number of people have been talking about flowers recently.
Oh,
what's appealing to you right now?
Well, in Virginia, it was all the rhododendrons and the mountain laurel, and of course, all the little wildflowers, popping up. The bleeding hearts and the lady slippers, and just beautiful. And of course, up this way, the mountain laurel just everywhere, and the wild roses and the honeysuckle now. Oh my gosh, the smells are incredible.
And it takes you back to those days, especially as you went early. You left in February, didn't you, I believe?
I did.
When you went, where there were no flowers at all. And then they just almost like suddenly appeared one morning. Suddenly the forest was alive with things when the previous day it hadn't been terribly alive. And then everything just gets better and better, doesn't it?
It does. You're absolutely right.
So Shenandoah, you've been through Shenandoah. So tell us about that.
Well, Shenandoah was lovely. It was like a walk through the park compared to what, we had previous to that. But exactly. I had an experience there. Trail closures, due to the search and rescue efforts. But I had a heavy rainstorm. And we were detoured to Skyline Drive. Right. And it just poured. So I had no idea where the trail was going to let me back on. It wasn't clear where the next section would be or how far. And so I set my tent up right on Skyline Drive. As soon as I found I did. As soon as I found the shoulder wide enough for my tent, set the tent up, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we got to get out of this rain because it was so heavy. And I'm like, I can't camp here. I'm going to get fined. It's not safe. But within an hour, the rain settled and got our thoughts back together, my thoughts back together, and packed up and went on. But yeah, you do what you got to do when it's necessary. But it made me realize how much I like my single wall tent, because another fella did the same thing and everything he owned got wet, and I couldn't understand why. But by the time you set up his tent and put his rain fly on, everything got wet. So with the single wall tent, you don't have to worry about that.
That's right. Yeah, I have a single wall as well. So which is your tent then? What tent have you got?
I have the Z-Pack duplex.
All right, yeah, I love that as well myself. Although I don't know whether you know, I've now just after I saw you at Trail Days, I went, I hammocked for the next 5 days for the first time ever, and I loved it. I really enjoyed being in a hammock, so that was pretty cool.
So that was fun, huh?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, and you said also there's 2 other things you noted here. Before I mention those, we're calling partly because you're in the middle of this smoke, or you're partly in the middle of this smoke. So how bad is it up there?
It's bad. Right in front of you, of course, it's right. You can smell it, but if you look in the distance, everything is just a white haze. You can barely see the mountains.
Good Lord.
Yeah, it's bad. And I started walking out of Duncannon this morning and got across the bridge and called the shuttle. And someone Wheezy P.
My lovely Wheezy P. Absolutely.
Oh, yes, she's awesome. She was awesome.
Yeah, she's delightful. Yeah.
Came straight away and picked me up and brought me to kind of outdoorsy, and so we're just kind of hanging out here.
So what are you going to do? Because it's not going to go away for a little while, apparently. Are you going to? I mean, it's probably going to get past you in a couple of days. Are you going to hold up for a couple of days, or just going to try to get out tomorrow?
I'm hoping to get out tomorrow. I think this afternoon was supposed to be the worst from what they're saying. But I'm just going to play it up by ear and see how it looks tomorrow.
And what impact is it having on sunsets? Because I've seen some pretty dramatic pictures of sunsets. Is it really doing something to them?
Oh, it is. Last night, and I don't know if you know this, but I'm hiking a little differently, the trail. I have my vehicle. My daughter brought me a car on Mother's Day. So I drive north, shuttle back, and hike. I shuttle back and then hike to my car. So when I got to Port Clinton last night, the sun was just covered with smoke. Yeah, it's really affecting the sunsets.
Actually, you mentioned Port Clinton, and this will be fresh in your mind. That climb down Port Clinton is epic, isn't it? I mean, it is so damn steep.
Well, I haven't done it yet.
Oh, I thought you said you had. You got from the south, did you? From the north?
Yes. So I drove my car to Port Clinton, and I shuttled back to Duncannon. But I've heard about that.
You will know exactly what I mean when you start it. It is steeper than you would ever imagine. It's the steepest thing, I think, going down until you get to New Hampshire. And did you go in Harper's Ferry, get your photo taken?
I did, of course. Yes, I love that. But, Harper's Ferry, it's the unofficial halfway point where you register your hike.
Sure.
Which was fun, and Harper's Ferry is a lovely town. I didn't spend a lot of time there because I had been there previous times. But walking out of Harper's Ferry was kind of a low day for me, only because, it's 1,025 miles at Harper's Ferry, and it's like,
sure.
I'm really not halfway. For me, that was another week ahead.
Yes.
And then it was Memorial Day and walking that towpath.
That's boring.
A lot of people on bicycles who had excellent trail etiquette, would say, on your left. And, of course, every time they would say that, Wiley would stop and walk out in front of them to see who was talking. I was like, no. So that was kind of a stressful day for both of us.
And the last one you mentioned was day 119, and maybe that was when you sent the text. So you were in Boiling Springs. I did that walk from Boiling Springs into Duncannon in one go. It was my longest day I ever did on the trail, and it's a nice, easy, flat path, isn't it?
Yes. And Boiling Springs is such a cute little town. I could go back there.
Yeah, beautiful place. Well, look, I'm so glad you reached out, and you're safe, and you're going to stay safe, hopefully. You got some. Once you get over the bridge, over the Susquehanna River Bridge, and isn't it noisy? By the way, the traffic's terrible on that bridge. I hated it. The noise of it. Then you start the climbing up, and then you hit the rocks. So beware of that. And I say, remember me when you walk down into Port Clinton.
I will. I certainly will, Steve.
All right. Well, lovely to talk to you, Mary, and I'm glad you're going well. Okay.
Yes, Steve. Good talking to you. Bye-bye.
And you. Cheers. Bye. As you could tell, I recorded Mary last week in the smoke from Canada, and it really was impacting her. She was in Duncannon. That traffic is noisy there, isn't it? So I try to cut out some of the traffic noise, but I wasn't entirely successful. But it was lovely to catch up with her. She's steady. She says she's slow, but she's steady. She's moving on. She's still going. She loved the Virginia Triple Crown, and let's face it, who doesn't? But she didn't dangle her legs. Those of you who have been there, trust me, it looks the most horrendously dangerous thing to do. But once you sort of get on your backside and get out there a bit, slither your backside out there a bit, you can hang your legs over. So it feels safe enough to me. I always enjoy hearing from Mary because she never complains. She just has this Zen-like quality of enjoying what she's doing, spending that time with her dog, meeting people on the trail, and just having a blast. And, I always admire that in anybody. So well done, Mary. So now let's hear from somebody else I met in Trail Days, Brian Robbins. As you're going to hear in a minute, Brian has been hogging the bears. Here's Brian.
Hello.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm doing good, Steve. Mighty Blue. How are you doing?
I'm good. Tell everybody where you are.
I'm sitting up on Kelly Knob, a viewpoint.
Yeah. So what's it like up there?
It's pretty windy. Hopefully it's not too windy for your recording.
Not at all, no.
Trees are a little overgrown. You got to kind of stand on your tippy toes for the best view, but it's good. It's a rock outcrop, and you got to really choose which method you hop on here, because in between these rocks there are some big cracks that go a long way down.
That's right. So what mile are you at now? What mile are you at now then, Brian?
669 last night, right. And I'm figuring I'd done about 8 miles.
Right.
So in the 670s.
That's cool. You're getting there. You're definitely getting there. And in fact, you've got the Virginia Triple Crown coming up soon, so you're going to absolutely love that. But you sent me a text about 4 days ago saying you were hiking up out of a Bland hostel, Weary Feet. I remember Weary Feet very well. Didn't stay there myself at the time, but I've been back there since. How are you enjoying hostel life?
I hate to say that I'm platinuming, but since all the
Don't hate to no. Don't hate to say it. You should platinum as much as you want to platinum, man.
Because I'm always getting a private room. I've been hiking with this one group for about 2 weeks, sure. And they always get the bunk room, and they're like, "Okay, PT Cruiser, you're getting the private room right now." Yeah, if they have one.
Yeah. Why
so
not?
I haven't stayed in a bunk room when in a hostel since Hot Springs. And that's when we were first hearing about all the Noro going around. Right. So I've been enjoying the private rooms when we get a chance to see a hostel.
Yeah, you see enough of people. You don't need to share them every bloody night with them, do you? Really, it's it's lovely. They're great to spend time with, but really, us old guys, we want to wake up. We go to bed and wake up quietly, don't we? We don't and do our early morning stretches and creaks and old man noises. After we met in Damascus, and it was lovely to meet you, you did your first 100-mile week. So tell us about that week after Damascus.
Well, that day I kind of lost all the people I was hiking with right out of Damascus. Right. And that, I think it was the next day, I had my first 100-mile week. That was a pretty good day to have that 100-mile. And then the next day I passed the 500-mile mark.
Yeah.
But it was a rainy day, and that there was a storm that came off the Carolina coast. It somehow brought cold weather down and rain. And what is it, Grayson Highlands or Highland Grayson, whatever you call it?
Grayson Islands. And you don't like it there, do you? For a very good reason.
Yeah. Last year on a pre-hike, I fell and broke my wrist. And this year it was rain and cold. After that 500-mile mark, I stopped at the very next shelter at like a little bit after noon and stayed in that shelter all day. It was so miserable. It was only a 5-mile day into Weiss shelter. And then I hiked like 11 miles the next day. And the next day I was picked up by my family, which was nice. Yeah. But that week, after having a 100-mile week, that week ended up only being like a 45-mile week. And that was a hard week.
Was it because the weather was so bad you just didn't want to do those longer miles?
It was miserable. I was slipping on the rocks. It was just so cold. The water had soaked down to everything. And I knew this whole group of people were going to the next shelter.
Right.
And it was not going to be any break in the rain all day. And I did not want to set up my tent. And so that's why I stayed. I got to that empty shelter and went ahead and stayed there because I knew that next shelter was going to just be plumb full.
Did it give you, being stuck in that shelter, did it get you down? Because it's a long place, it's a long time to be in a shelter if you've only done 5 miles that day. So how did you feel about it?
It was a very low part of my week because I'd already a low part of my hike because I knew I broke my wrist there. The only ponies I saw were ones that came by a shelter.
Sure.
Not even while I was out hiking.
Right.
And it was miserable. And it really made it hard after spending time with my wife. We went up to a lodge and my stepdaughter and her husband came. And we went to breweries and we went to places to dinner. And they drove up in my truck and they had my dog with them. And then when they dropped me back off at the trail, that was really hard to say goodbye to my wife, my dog, my truck, watch it all drive away.
Yeah. Did you consider not going back to the trail?
There was a part of me that really considered. I had told my wife I was homesick. And so it really took some strength and some grit to keep on going.
So why did you keep on going?
Well, it's the challenge, the achievement, the story. Why do all this so far and not keep going?
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with you. But I can see how tough it is for people to face that. We've had a number of people who've gone home because they couldn't face that. They didn't want to face that, or they chose to do other things. And none of it's this thing about meeting up with friends and family. It's a real dual-edged sword. It's a great thing to see them, but my gosh, it can make you miss them so much more. Now you're back into it. How are you feeling now?
We're doing good. We're doing like 97-mile weeks. We added that up last night.
Yeah.
We stopped a little early. It was another rainy day yesterday.
Yeah.
And it was a tough day. I was listening to your podcast while I was hiking it when you did it in 19. And you were like, I don't have a lot to say about this day. It was some tough rocks and tough that, but we're going to go right to this interview with this other. And I'm like, yeah, I see why. The trail was really maintained well yesterday, and we had an inspiration to go 16, and we stopped at 12. And so today we're doing 18 to make up for it because we kind of have to average 15 a day to get to Roanoke through the Triple Crown by Friday. So.
Right. Cool. Well, it's been, you mentioned the pony, not being able to see the ponies, but you've seen, according to your text, unless you miswrote this. Well, tell everybody how many bears, by last Friday, you'd seen how many bears?
I saw another bear 2 days ago. So now I have seen 14 bears.
Good Lord. Are you going through zoos or something?
No. I have seen 14 bears, 10 snakes, and 10 deer.
Good Lord. So you've had 2 close encounters. Tell us about that.
The first one was it was the day I saw you. I came hiking my longest day, and I come into where I'm going to stay in a lodge, and there you are sitting at the bar after my longest day. That was pretty ironic, but
yeah.
but on the way down there was all this talks of bear, and I'd lost all my hiking buddies. I was hiking by myself, and I was not going to camp where they had all these stories. We're going down to the trail of these bears. Yeah. And so they had talked about this one at a shelter. You actually stayed at that shelter that hiker, Hello, had went down and got water for you.
All right.
And there was
that's right. Yeah.
Bear there. And I was not even a mile away from that shelter. And out of the corner of my eye, I see something rolling down. It looked like it was rolling down the hill. And it was like this 3-year-old bear.
Ooh.
And it tried to stop. It tried to stop on the trail, but it kept on going about 10 more feet. And then it popped up and stood completely on 2 legs right in front of me and stared at me right in the eyes and looked at me.
Well, how close were you?
Probably 15 feet.
That's more than close enough.
And I took my poles and smacked them together. And it looked at me and it said, okay, never mind, and turned its head and ran.
Nice. I did actually hear about another bear encounter from Brian, but I didn't want to make you all jealous. 14 bears. That is amazing. And for those of you who have experienced bears in the wild, you'll know it's a wonderful privilege as well. Brian faced that age-old dilemma. His family came to meet him, and not surprisingly, he felt homesick. It's tough to let your loved ones go, and to be honest, it would have been the easiest thing in the world to have gone home right then, but he didn't. Sometimes you need that test to confirm that hiking the trail is the thing that you want to do more than anything else that summer. Brian passed the test and he's still heading north. Nice one, Brian. Next up, we have our Aussie from Boston, Steve Noda. Let's catch up with Steve and see how he's doing.
Steve Adams.
Hey, Steve Noda, how are you?
Oh, well, man, how the heck are you?
Well, I'm good, but I'm slightly confused about the message you sent me. You got to Daleville and now you're in Killington. So what happened?
Well, I was always going to get off in Virginia.
Yeah.
I should have gotten off in Harper's, of course.
All right.
But, man, I had lost so much weight. I got into Daleville and I was dragging ass the 2 days through the Triple Crown, the Virginia Triple Crown.
Yeah.
Man, I was just dying. And I got into the hotel room and I looked at myself in the mirror and I go, holy shit. I mean,
this is meant to be a family-friendly show, but you carry on, you bloody Aussies.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. I was just like, oh my God, this is just amazing. So I was lighter than I was when I was in university boxing.
Good Lord. I tell you what, when I saw you in Damascus, you looked skinny then. So what is it? You haven't got the hiker hunger? Because that normally just keeps stuff up, although people still lose weight. I mean, it just melted off me. I lost 40 pounds in my first 5 weeks first time I did it. So what was it with you? Were you just not eating?
Yeah, look, I was probably stupid. I am stupid. And I've changed my ways, I promise. I really wasn't eating enough on trail.
Right.
That's the long and short of it. It must be it, So like I was having, a pack of Pop-Tarts in the morning and a couple of Cliff Bars on the way to lunch. But I obviously was not putting enough calories into my body. And I was losing some muscle mass as well. So obviously, it was getting to the point where, the body was kind of eating itself to keep you going, right?
And you get that horrible ammonia smell, don't you? When your muscle breaks out. Oh, it's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, tell me about it, man. So it's like, I took a week off. I went back to Columbia, South Carolina, where my, if you will, my home base is.
Sure.
We've got had my summer gear. And I said, I'm just going to take a week off and engorge myself, which is what I did.
What a wonderful thing.
It was, I mean, guiltless too, absolutely guiltless. And so filled myself up, feel much better now. So between, ensuring that I overhydrate and eat a lot, I'm feeling much better. And, I can do that Harper's to Daleville section easy.
Yeah.
It's a relatively smooth track aside from the roller coaster.
Right.
But honestly, even then, it's not huge, climbs and descents. You're just doing lots of ups and downs.
Yeah, sure.
It's not like going over the whites or something like that.
No, which you're about to find out. So
yes, indeed.
Yeah. So you went to, you say you just got into Killington. Was that where I can't recall what you did last year. So you're filling in gaps.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I got off the trail last year in Bennington.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. Yes, of course.
So I flew from Columbia into Albany.
Right.
And took the bus over to Bennington. And hopped on trail that afternoon.
Right.
So knocked out 10 miles that first day, and I'll tell you, it was a bit of a bit of an eye opener because it's still cool up here, cooler than what I anticipated.
Sure.
Plus, when I flew in last week, they were dealing with all that smoke from the fires
Cool,
up
in Canada, yeah.
So it was thick cloud, and of course with the smoke keeping the sun out, it was it kept the temperatures down that much more, and drizzly and all the rest. So the first 3 days were pretty miserable, and I was cold because I've swapped over to my summer weight bag,
right,
thinking that it would be higher than like 38 degrees at night.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's fresh. That's fresh, isn't it?
It was super fresh. So I was shivering. I had all my clothes on. It was like you're in the Smokies, on a snowy night.
Oh, dear.
I was like shivering in my bag. It's like, this is crazy. and I'm wondering to myself, geez, do I have the right bag to get me through up north? Of course, that's since changed. The smoke is blown away.
Right.
So it warmed up. It's only getting down to like the high 40s, low 50s at
which
night
is fine.
now.
Which should be fine. Yeah, that shouldn't be any problem. So you're going to be hitting the whites in a week.
Yeah.
Are you mentally there? Do you think are you up for it? Because it is testing. There's no question about it. And you've just jumped up from obviously Virginia, and you didn't do you've done the other stuff last year. You ready for the whites? You think?
I am. I was lucky enough to be with a fellow who was filling in a gap between Great Barrington and Killington. He had broke his a couple of years ago, an older, and he did the White Mountain. So I guess from Killington to Grafton Notch last year.
Right.
So he was able to give me some pointers about the whites and all the rest. And as we were, there are some very short bits, admittedly incredibly short bits, as you're going through Vermont, like perhaps 100 or 200 foot climb.
Yeah.
That's, a rock face. And he goes, yep, this is pretty much what you're going to be doing for 2 miles instead of, half a mile.
Oh dear. But you must, what? You've got to be looking forward to it though. It is such the best time, and you feel invincible when you're up there, and it is just extraordinary. All the views. I remember going up. The what's it called? Never remember it. Moosilauke.
Yep.
Going up there, and I was doing this video, and the guy next to me was saying, I've been jaded with the views, but really, this is just not knocking everything out, out of the park. It's just extraordinary, some of the stuff you're going to see up there. So I'm envious of you doing that. Well, look, I'm so pleased you're back into it. And any more plans? You now going to go through, as far as you're concerned, to Katahdin?
Yep. That's the so. In the back of my mind, my plan is to take advantage of those AMC huts.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
I know they're pricey.
Are you going to stay? You're actually going to try to stay night there?
Yeah, I am. I think I'm going to try to stay a night. I am a member, so there's
cool.
There's a modest discount.
Yes, yeah, it's still expensive, but you know what? You've got to do this your way. You absolutely have, and if part of it is part of your concern is not eating properly, then you've got to eat properly. So hopefully, and those guys certainly feed you up. So that'll make it a very pleasant experience. So good for you. You should do as I've always said to everybody, this is your hike. You've got to do it exactly as you want to do it. And if that's where you want to do it, you should absolutely do that. Not everybody can do that, of course, but good for you that you can. You know what? And I think that's more of our generation, my generation. I'm older than you, but much older than you. But the older generation are lucky enough to be able to do that in some cases, and they absolutely should if they can. So good for you for doing that.
Absolutely.
Well, look, yeah. I'm not actually having anybody on the show next week other than one particular guest, and so I'm not going to do any catch-ups for a couple of weeks. So keep in touch. Send me a text, and we'll catch up soon. Okay.
Sounds good, my friend.
Okay, buddy. Take it easy. Okay.
Okay. You too, Steve.
Cheers. Bye. So there's another member of our class having a great time. But Steve's pretty much a cautionary tale for those of you who are out there who simply can't get enough calories into your bodies. Well, they say the average guy burns between 5,000 and 7,000 calories a day on this trail. So you should always be aware of how much you're losing. He took a week off and pigged out. Excellent remedy. Now, let's check in with Nancy Farrell, the last of our class to hit the trail this year. And you've already heard partly from Mark Carpenter. She's had a bit of a close encounter as well. Here's Nancy.
Good morning. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Nancy. How are you feeling?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm always fine. Yeah. So
Good.
I'm not the problem. So
You're not the problem. I'm not the problem either.
No, you're not. So how's it going? So how far are you along the way now then?
I just got into Boiling Springs last night.
Lovely. Where are you staying there?
Well, I'm staying at this absolutely splendid resort.
Uh-huh.
I thought I would spoil myself at the Allenberry Resort, I think it's called.
Oh, wow. Yes, that's nice.
It's just, I walked here last night, so it's barely, I think, 10 minutes walk out of Boiling Springs.
Yeah.
And I got that place from, again, RTK, his Platinum Blazing book.
There you go, Platinum Blazing away. And did you go past the the campsite, which looks like it? The campsite is basically just before you come into town, and the train runs right alongside it. That was one of the most terrifying moments when the train came through when I was camping there.
Oh, you camped there? Yeah, I met a bunch of Nobo, of course. And they were, I think most of them were going to camp there last night. So I did see it as I passed by. Yeah, absolutely. Even here, I can hear the train too.
Oh,
so I can't imagine what it would be like to be right next to it at the campsite. Yeah.
It sounded like it was coming through my tent. I literally ducked.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So how many miles are you into it now?
I'm basically at 100, or I'm shy maybe a mile or two of 100, but I'm calling it 100. That's my first 100, basically. Yeah.
And how many days is that then?
Yesterday was day 11.
That's not bad, you know. So, I mean, what's your longest day and what's your shortest day? Have you had any zeros?
No, this is today my first zero.
Right.
I had a Nero. Well, technically, I called it a Nero because I stayed at a bed and breakfast overnight.
Right.
I think it was on day 5 or something. But I did plenty of miles on each side of that stay, so it wasn't really a Nero. So it was good. Yeah, it just allowed me to, sleep in a bed, have a shower, and I was getting one of my food box delivered, and they arranged to deliver it there, so that was good. But to answer your question, I think I've been doing about shortest day 7.5, and the longest was yesterday. I was originally going to stay at the Alec Kennedy shelter, which is the last shelter before you get into Bowling Springs.
Sure.
But the day was good, and the allure of staying in a bed and doing a zero today was strong. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna push forward. So I did about 14 yesterday. Maryland was absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
Loved Maryland, apart from a little section which had the rocks that was like a little bit difficult, but for the most part. But either way, even on flat terrain, you could trip anywhere. So I'm just really slow, and I think it takes me longer to do the miles, but
that doesn't matter.
I do them. It doesn't matter.
It's absolutely no race at all. And in fact, from Boiling Springs, you've got, from Boiling Springs into Duncannon, I did with Trigger. Of course, I'd had about 800 or 900 miles under my belt by then, but that was our longest ever day. We did 26 miles that day directly into Duncannon. So your next 2 days hiking will be fine. It's soon after Duncannon you start hitting the rocks, the bad rocks. But you know what? Yeah. That's okay. Don't worry about that. It is part of it. And have you been hiking with anybody, or are you generally by yourself?
No. You had told me on the last interview, right, to expect to basically be alone because most of the Nobos, I've seen some Nobos obviously, but the bulk of the Nobos is still behind.
Right.
And so there aren't that many people through hiking, and those nobles that I've seen, I mean, they're doing exactly what you said they'd do. They just whiz past me. You know, I say hi, we chit chat, and I say, okay, you know, have a great trip, and we'll never see you again. So it's pretty much been the case. On weekends, I see more section hikers or you know, weekend hikers, and they're always more willing to chit chat and ask questions and all of that. So it's been nice meeting and chatting with some of the hikers, but I have not hiked. I've hiked alone, and in fact, I'm really surprised how shelters are not busy either.
I'm surprised at that as well, actually. I thought there's quite a few these days. More and more people are flip-flopping, and I would have thought there'd be more. But maybe the flip-flop will start a little bit later. Is that right?
No, I think the flip-floppers, from what I understood, have already started. They started back in probably like a month before me, at least.
Right. Okay.
So most of the because I have a friend who's up in, I think she's entering New Hampshire now, and she said she did pass a few, you know, flip-floppers that had started around that time, like a few, like in a group, almost like a family of flip-floppers. And the day I started, there were two that started as well. And I remember looking at the ATC register, and pretty much after me, unless they haven't registered, which is always possible, but after me, there was no other flip-floppers.
Good Lord. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Now, how's your body doing? You know, are you holding up physically?
Yeah. I think that I'm holding up well so far. I'm very happy. No aches or pains. I think that the slow pace is helping me a lot with that.
Sure. You've got to ease yourself into it, Nancy, haven't you?
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I kind of put together a bit of a recovery plan. When I get to the shelters, I carry with me this like massage stick, which is £1 on its own, but I use it and massage all of my legs and, the calves, everything, like all the muscles. And I also do a protein, some kind of protein thing I do, and stretches and all that. And then I do the same thing in the morning too before I go.
Do you need a special massage stick, or can't you use your poles just to rub up and down your calves?
I could, but this particular massage stick has they're like little wheels, and they move in different direction as you roll. And each little wheel has like nudges in it, so it really gets into the fascia really well.
Wow.
And I don't know. I mean, some people might think it's a luxury item, but if it helps to keep my body in check, I'm thinking, it's not a luxury. So
absolutely.
I am like, it fits in very easily on the side of my backpack with my umbrella, because the shape is easy, right? It's just like a tube, kind of long tube. So it's easy to stash as well. Okay. So the body is holding well, but I tell you the one thing though, which I'm not surprised, it's the blisters. I did get some blisters, but I'm caring for them, and I patched them up, and I got a few hot spots, and I put the Leuco tape on those hot spots before they became blisters. Good. The ones that turn out blisters, I think they just I didn't feel them coming on, right? So until they were a blister, but they haven't really prevented me from, keeping a normal pace. So far so good, I guess.
Good. That's good. Me again. I then went on to ask Nancy about her partner, Jacques, who's had a bit of a relapse in his health issue, but she assured me that he's got a good network of friends and he wants her to keep marching on. That led me on to talking about Nancy's close encounter with a bear. Here's what she told me. You also met another one of our class of 23 and sent me a picture at Quarry Gap Shelter, one of the nicest shelters on the trail, by the way.
Yes, and that was so funny. So that's one of the shelters that I got to, and there was nobody around at all. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what time Mark rolled in, but he was the only hiker that arrived and it was kind of lateish in the day because Mark has obviously, been hiking since Georgia, so he's doing big miles. So he arrived a little later. And I had set up my tent, and he said hi, and he says, "Oh, I'm going to go set up over there, a little further." So I said, "Fine." Anyway, finally he came to do his dinner, and we started to chit chat. And then I started to tell my story. And as soon as I started to say, because I said, "Oh, I was supposed to start in March, but my boyfriend got sick," and he's like, "Are you Blue Sky?" And I'm like, "What?" I was like, "What? Like, how do you know that? Like, what did I just say that could tell you that I'm Blue Sky?" Nothing. And then he says, "Oh," and then he basically said, "I'm Mark. I'm with that part of the class of 23." And we're like, "Are you kidding me? This is so hilarious." There's like 2 people only. Plus, you told me that most of the class of 23 are way behind, like they're behind me, like they're not here yet.
One or two. Yeah, I'm surprised he was that. I'm surprised he was that far up. Yeah, there's a flip-flopper who was ahead of you. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had a bear at that shelter. Is that at the shelter or what?
Oh, it was in around the privy. The privies are just a little bit up the hill, but not very far from the shelter. That was so hilarious. So because we realized we were from the class, with you, we exchanged phone number to keep in touch.
It's good.
So I was like, "Oh, great."
Yeah.
So I'm in my tent. It's dark by then. I'm in my tent. He texts me and he says, "Is this you in the bathroom up there?" And I'm like, "No, it's not me. I thought it was you." He's like, "No, I'm in my tent." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, all this racket going on." And then he said, "Well, I had set up my tent on the tent pad, which is right next to that little gate. I don't know if you remember
I do
that.
remember
That
it.
was set
Beautiful.
up.
Yeah, great spot.
It's really beautiful." So he said, "Did you hear more hiker come through?" I was like, "No, I didn't. And I would have heard the footstep. At least, or if there's 2, probably, somebody speak." I said, "No, I heard nothing. There's just you and I at the shelter." He's like, "Well, what is that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." But I said, "I think it's a bear." So we're like just texting one another. I'm super nervous because I'm much closer. He's away. He's not even close to the shelter. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no way." So I intentionally, stayed quiet and then listened. I think what happened is it definitely was a bear, because the next morning when I went up to the privy, for some reason they had a metal trash can, but it wasn't for food. I think the maintenance crew must use it for some things.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were
don't
using it for.
Don't discuss that.
Yeah. So anyway, I go up there and the can is been kicked like down off of its pedestal. The lid is off, and you could see that it corresponded to the noise that I heard, which was these kicking the can and bing the metal, and then they try to get into the privy, like what a bear would do, basically looking for food.
Very cool.
And so the next morning I took his Mark had already gone, so I took a picture of the trash can and I sent it to him, and I said, "Well, it's either I said, if it was a hiker, it was a very disrespectful hiker because, we kicked the can down." So then he texts back and he's like, "Yeah, I think it was a bear." And I'm like, "Yep, I think it was a bear too." But, it lasted, a few minutes, and then he moved on because there was nothing there. So the bear obviously moved on, but it was like, okay, interesting.
Well, look, obviously your partner's health is going to be important, very important. So you obviously got to watch out for that. But if he's on antibiotics, I presume they've got it under control. They're going to work it all out. Yeah. But look, you enjoy the rest of Pennsylvania that you're going to enjoy, which is this walk in the next 2 days. After that, it does get tougher, but just enjoy it still and just keep moving on the best you can and just stay in touch. Okay.
Absolutely will, Steve. Thank you. It was great catching up with you. And
you, Nancy. Speak to you soon. Cheers.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. We've got just 2 more to go. Nancy started well. That first 100 miles, wherever it occurs, is a pretty cool milestone to hit. And what about that bear? Oh, my God. Texting back and forth with Mark when each thought it was the other making a racket in the privy. Funny. I like the fact that she's been proactive in managing her body with that massage stick and preempting the blisters. You really do need to take care of yourself out there, and Nancy seems to know what she's doing. Now, when Nancy and I started talking, I said, kind of throwaway remark, I said I'm always fine, and generally I am. But I'm editing this on Wednesday afternoon, the day before it's released, after an operation on my hand early this morning. Fortunately, it's my right hand and I'm left-handed, but the local anaesthetic is pretty much worn off now, so I'm getting quite a bit of pain right this minute. I'm going to hurry and finish this, and fair warning, my show notes and thank yous will have to come next week. I do hope you understand. Another member of our class, Chuck Falconbury, hadn't been in touch for a while, so I was pretty sure what I was going to hear when we spoke. Here's Chuck.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Chuck, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, I'm all right. I've been putting together a show for this week with all our class of 23 members, and of course, I know I hadn't heard from you for some while. I've been wondering what's going on. So tell us. I mean, I can't remember the last time we spoke. It's been quite a while now, though.
Yeah, it's been a few months. I was heading back out on the trail, I think, starting at Harper's Ferry.
That's right. That's right. So what happened since then?
Well, I went out and went out for about a week and a half and ended up just continuing to feel a lot of pain and injury just intensified. A lot of there were some spots. I mean, it was a much smoother walk for a while, but then there were some spots where I was going over boulders and those kind of things. And just the action of bending my knee and with my weight on it past the 90-degree angle to try to lift myself up or bring myself off the boulders just was excruciating. And I thought, I am just tearing myself up. So came off the trail before Boiling Springs and in PA and met with a doctor and had surgery a few weeks ago and now have been released to start training again. So I've started walking, and as of today, I'm able to start doing some lifting and some weight bearing and those kind of things. So,
good Lord, good. So what did he actually do then in the surgery?
Well, they cleaned up cartilage that was damaged, got rid of some arthritis, which at my age, that's to be determined.
That's a bonus, though. I didn't know you can know you can get rid of arthritis.
Yeah, I don't think he got rid of it all because I still feel a little bit, but then there were some fibers. But the big thing was the bone, the tibia was cracked, and so it was, and it went into basically down to the way he described it was the crack was far enough that it was in towards like the marrow and those kind of things. So he had to seal that up.
Oh my gosh! So you've been walking with a broken leg?
Well, basically, yeah. I guess it's a fracture, but yeah. I guess you could say it was. Yeah.
So talk me through it. So you were back on trail, which I know you were so excited about this. I know you started your hike last November. I'm sure you're over the initial concern. So how long have you been off trail now then?
So now I've been off for about 6 weeks.
Right. And what do you feel like?
Extremely disappointed. I was disappointed the day I made the decision. It was, a very tearful day.
Yeah, sure.
But it was just one of those things. It's like, do you want to do permanent damage and probably not finish anyways, or do you want to get off with the opportunity that you could heal yourself and maybe do hikes in the future?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I am, but it's still just very disheartening. I still watch some folks and see their progress and stuff, but it seems like a lot of folks are getting off, but I think that's just the way the trail goes each year. But
well, if you remember, 1 in 5 is the number. Yeah. So why would any of us expect to be able to finish? And funny enough, I was talking with somebody earlier on who's been on the trail, and I'm not sure what order this is going to go out in, but he was. I was saying to him that really this is luck. Those of us who have been lucky enough to finish are lucky enough to finish because, I wasn't super fit and I was lucky enough to finish. I avoided injury. Do you recall actually how it happened or was there a moment or was it just a general deterioration? Because a fracture is a crack, isn't it? So, something's happened to you.
Right. Yeah, I was moving quite along early on through the Georgia section, especially, and as I got into North Carolina, and then I hit the Smokies.
Right.
And after that first day in the Smokies, got to the top, was doing fine. I mean, I got up to, watching other folks, I got up to the top of the ridge and up the tower and everything pretty quickly. I felt pretty strong. And then the next day was just rainy and having to come down through the gullies and the rocks. There was one point where I landed full force on my left leg, which is the leg that I'm having problems with.
Right.
And I just felt something in my knee. And being in the Smokies is not like you can just jump off at the next crossing.
No.
So I went on, and it was just rainy. And every time I would step down on large rocks or put a lot of weight on it or try to step up, I just kept feeling like I was doing something else. So I came off that trail at that point, if you remember, and was off for about 4 weeks, then rested and checked in with a surgeon, and they said, yeah, you've got some issues in there, and potentially a crack, and had it all, an MRI and all that stuff. And then they released me, said, yeah, you can go back. But it may be something you contend with. And then, of course, I went back for a week and a half and just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was done.
So you said you can last put some weight on it. How's it feeling right now?
It feels about 85%, which I think is pretty good at this point. And now that I'm doing walking and able to put some, really start strengthening it up, I feel like it's going to get better. I'm not expecting 100%, but I think it's going to be, what I need for the next several years, and probably good enough to get me back on the trail. I think I'll attack the trail smarter in the future. I don't think I'll attempt a through hike. I think I'm going to look at it in sections and go after the trail in sections at different times of year that work in my schedule, but also based on weather and those kind of things.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to become more of a section hiker at this point.
I always think that's the toughest thing anyway. I think for the through hikers, if you can keep going, keep bloody going, because in your case, if you're going to be a section hiker, you have to restart every time. I can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah, I know. And especially as you start thinking of the whites and in places like that. Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
I'm disappointed for you because I know how much you were looking forward to it and so on. And and if you listen to the show, you know that one or two people have already dropped off. Well, a few more have dropped off for this week as well. So this is a war of attrition. People have to realize when you get out there, it's not as easy as it looks. And for some people, they just get injured and you can't do anything. No one can do anything about that. So,
right.
Well, look, I'm glad that you came back to me when I texted you, because I know I hadn't heard from you and I know you'd had problems, so I presumed you were off trail. But, if you get back on, let me know and we'll catch up and we'll have a chat then, okay?
That sounds great. And I appreciate it, Steve. Appreciate all the support of you and the fans out there that you have. And,
cool.
Look forward to connecting again.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, man. Well, look, best of luck and happy trails, okay?
All right. Thank you.
Cheers then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So, Chuck and I were talking after we hung up, and I thought I'd record again because I just want to know your feelings about being on the trail. And now what was your takeaway from the trail? I know you enjoy it; it was what you wanted to do. But what was your big takeaways from the trail, the miles that you did do?
Well, I think my biggest takeaway was, somebody at my age, I'm only 63, but was just the peace of mind on the trail. It was such a simple existence, but it was so incredible to be out there in nature and walking and knowing that, hey, I'm doing this thing. But didn't get all the way through, but it was just the fact that, hey, this was a lifetime occurrence. And, and especially for all the people and all the motivation I had and everybody I wanted to honor by doing this. It really was a humbling experience in many ways, but it was also very exhilarating as well.
Yeah. It's a simple life, isn't it? It
really is.
Basically eat, walk, sleep. I mean, that's pretty much all you do it all the time. And you know what? There's worse ways to live your life, isn't there?
That's right. Yeah. And filtering water. Yeah. Go find water.
Definitely. Yeah. It's the basics of life, and it's just getting on and being out there. Well, look, as I'm so pleased that you came back on, and as I say, stay in touch, and we'll catch up soon. Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay,
Thanks,
mate.
Steve.
Take it easy. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm so glad we finished with that last part. You could hear Chuck's disappointment, but also his grace as he handled that disappointment. Let's face it, it is no mean feat to spend quite a while on the Appalachian Trail, especially when you're carrying a fractured tibia. Thanks for being a member of our class, Chuck. I promise, it's the last person now. It's Ron Ward, and when I met Ron and his wife in Damascus, he was just killing it. Let's catch up with him now. Here's Ron.
Hello?
Hey, Ron, how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I can, but you know what? You're not good, are you? That's good. What on earth's happened? You were going so strong when we last spoke, but what happened?
I'm all right. Well, I had a pretty good fall. I think it was first week of May.
Right.
Let's say third or fourth day of May, and just came down, tripped on a root, and just went downhill, landed squarely on my left knee, and just kind of the whole thing kind of collapsed. You and I talked about it.
Yes, right. I know.
Just kind of sat down on it.
Yeah.
But I got up and continued on that day, and for days after that, with no problems, no pain, nothing that was out of the ordinary or unusual. 2 days, the second day after getting back on trail, after trail days, I just had to stop. I got to Atkins, Virginia, and crossed under 81, and when you go under, well, you may not remember this, but you go under 81, and then you start heading north on the trail back into the woods. And
yes,
you go
right.
through these series of sort of elevated pastures, and the trail's real narrow, but it's not very rigorous. I mean, it's not harsh terrain by any stretch.
Yeah.
Steve, I had to stop and turn around. I actually walked back.
Oh my God! No one does that. No one does that.
I know.
Oh my
I
gosh!
I couldn't get any cell service. I got my wife on the phone just to let her know if you see me going backwards, this is why, and I got to make a decision. So I got it's probably 2:30, something like that in the afternoon, hot as blue blazes. I got to Atkins and just went to that Exxon that's like right there at that crossroads, Route 81 and 11. And I called a coach over at Marion Outdoors.
Right.
And I said, I need a shuttle, and I need to get to an urgent care. And I finally, 10 minutes of calling different shuttle numbers, I got somebody, and this thing was swelling up like you wouldn't believe.
What had happened then? Because you were handling it.
Nothing.
It just suddenly was it perhaps the fact that you stopped in Damascus for a couple of days?
Maybe. Nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, the day before, I had done 16 or 17 miles all the way to Partnership Shelter, the one right there at Mount Rogers.
Yeah.
At there's the visitor center.
Yeah.
I made it there. It was a long day, but I was fine. In fact, I was eager to get going early the next morning, because I wanted to make it to this campsite. There was just north of there's a campsite that has a privy, but no shelter or anything like that. And I was just curious, and I thought, well, that'll be a cool place to stay. Anyway, long story short.
Hang on. Strange what we find cool in our old age when we're out on the trail, isn't it?
I know. Deranged. But to answer your question, nothing out of the ordinary happened. I didn't twist. I didn't fall. Nothing out of the ordinary. That's why it was so surprising to me that just out of the blue, probably mid-morning that second day back on trail, I started noticing
this pain on the outside and down the back of my calf, which was a little new, and alarming, but it got worse all day long. I stopped at the little one-room schoolhouse.
Oh, yes. Fantastic.
You know where I'm talking about?
I know exactly where it is. Yeah.
By the Settlers Museum.
That's
and
right.
all that.
Yeah.
I stopped in that schoolhouse, and something I don't normally do, and I probably should, but I took my pack off. I took my shoe off, and I just propped my foot up on one of those desks, and I had my lunch there early in the day. And it was concerning at that point, but I thought, man, it's not a big deal. No problem.
Yeah.
Kept going. But like I said, by 2:00 or so in the afternoon, I was within spitting distance of my destination. But I knew, if I've got cell service right now, and I know that there's an urgent care in Marion, which is 5 or 6 miles from me, I need to do something now.
Sure.
I can't go and
good choice. To be honest with you. Yeah, good choice.
Well, so I get to the urgent care, and of course, all they can do is an exam and an X-ray, and the X-ray came back clear, unremarkable, as they would say. They gave me a steroid pack and recommended, that I just kind of take a day maybe and put some ice on it, elevate it, and all that. I did that for 2 days in Marion, got back on trail, and it was still hurting pretty bad. Went to Quarterway Inn.
Love it.
Which is
with the great Tina,
by the way.
The great Tina.
Tina is so awesome, and she offered loads of encouragement. I came dragging in there, just limping. She saw me coming up the driveway and said, "What happened to you?" We'd never met, And are you okay? And I said, I think I'm done. I don't think I can go any further. She said, well, when people say that, I always tell them, and I'm not trying to sell them a bunk or anything, but just take a day, sleep on it before you make any decisions.
Sure.
And so I did that. I got going the next morning, had a pretty decent day, and got to that really cool enclosed shelter that's way up. I can't remember the names of the shelters, but it was the one that's way up on top of that kind of bald that looks down into that limestone sinkhole. It's in this area.
Oh, it's Chestnut Knob Shelter.
Yeah,
one of my favorite spots. Beautiful, with that great view of Burt's Garden. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. And yes, that's right. That's the name of it. So stayed there. And again, I was limping in there. That was a 15-mile day. Probably did too much too early, but midday I was feeling like, all right, if this is as bad as it is, I can probably manage this. The next day after that was another one of those up and down kind of sawtooth trail days where it's just, there's steep ascent and then a dramatic descent and then another and another. And the downhills were just really slowing me down too.
Right.
I mean, literally I was just having to stop and sit down after, 4 or 5 steps.
Wow.
Pretty demoralizing stuff. Anyway, make a long story short, I got to, at long last, I made it to Bland at where that little on trail resupply is. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's a little, they have burgers and some resupply. And,
I don't recall that. No, I don't recall that.
I can't remember the name of the place. Not Shady. Anyhow, I got a shuttle, this was on Friday of last week. I got a shuttle into Bland, and I called the orthopedic. Well, I didn't even tell you this. I'd gone to Roanoke to see an orthopedist. I'd gotten a referral before I got back on trail.
Good.
And he gave me an exam and said maybe an MRI is necessary, but at this point it might just be IT band, tendonitis, and you can sort of manage the pain a little bit. He said, call me in a week. I called him later that week and he said, well, buddy, we need to do an MRI, and I can't schedule that just overnight. So, try to get some miles in where you can. I don't think you can make it any worse, but you might. So, I just had the MRI. I should have the results later this week. I mean, I had it this morning.
Right.
I should have it later this week or early next week.
So where are
I'm
you?
in Withville.
You're in Withville. Okay. So how long you be there?
I've actually got some friends who are coming through here on their way to New York tomorrow.
Nice.
It has nothing to do with the trail. They're not hikers. They're just buddies of mine. And they said, look, we'll pick you up. You come with us while you wait on these results.
Silly not to. Absolutely right. You know what? You're such a resilient guy. And I remember when we were talking, you told me you'd had some aches and pains, quite regularly, in fact, you'd had some aches and pains. But, you're fine. I'm just going to get it. You just have to listen to your body, though, don't you? So I'm glad you turned back when you did.
Steve, let me tell you this, and I'm absolutely not exaggerating. I'm not making this up. At post Atkins, like I had walked past Atkins, I was feeling this really, really significant pain before I went to the urgent care and all this. When I was making that decision, I'm going up through these fields, and there's like one big barbed wire fence that has one of those ladders over it,
Right.
And I climb over this ladder, and my knee's buckling.
Wow.
Like it feels really unstable. And so I get to the other side, and I'm thinking that was a huge mistake because I got to go back over there. I got to go back.
Oh,
I'm going to have to backtrack.
Yeah.
And this young lady is behind me. I didn't know she was behind me. I hadn't seen her all day. She comes up and over, and she just walks up to me, and she says, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah." And I'm standing there kind of rubbing my knee, and she goes, "You're feeling it, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, this knee is really talking to me." And she said, "You got to listen to your body."
Damn right.
Good luck.
Best advice. Advice.
And she kind of walked on and was like, "Can I help you? Do you need anything? Do you need help getting back over this fence?" And I was like, No, I'm good. She said, "Well, I'm going to stand here and watch you because I don't want you to fall." I must have been pale or something because she could see it on me, So it's funny that you said you got to listen to your own body, because that is what her saying that to me at that moment made me feel like, all right, yeah, I can't just keep rubbing dirt on this and walking it off. I gotta do something about it. And it's cost me, a couple of good weeks. I mean, I'm way behind now.
You're okay. You're still fine. It's not a race, and you'll get there when you get there. But the important thing first is to make sure you're okay. Once you've made sure you're okay, then you can decide with your orthopedist whether you get back on or not. Because, I know you really want to do this, but it's not worth it if you're going to screw yourself up. And you know that as well, obviously.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah. So how are you feeling? I mean, how do you feel? Are you positive still, or are you thinking this could be it?
I don't want it to be it.
Of course.
I mean, I'm thinking, well, do I skip some miles to try to make it up, to try to get to Harper's Ferry quicker? Is it just Virginia? Do I have a bad? Is there just bad mojo between me and Virginia? What is all these emotions are going? I was talking to a friend of mine today, and I said that very thing, and he was like, "Oh, I doubt it." But so yeah, it is the thing that sort of takes the wind from my sails. The demoralizing thing is just sitting idle here in this region. I've been in Virginia almost a month.
Wow.
And I just made it to the 600-mile mark.
Right.
The other day. I just decided I'm going to go get some miles, and I actually got to that spot, and I'm pretty happy about that. But it was painful.
Yeah, you can't keep doing that to yourself. You just can't. I tell you, if it were, I tell you what I would think if it were me. Firstly, I've always recognized this. I was, and you need to be incredibly lucky to complete this without an injury that affects you. So that's where I start. Had I been in your situation and had I been able to get back on, I think if you feel you're behind, then you're always going to feel you're behind. So if you get the chance to go back on, why not just go up to Harper's, head to Katahdin, get Katahdin done, and then fill in that extra bit when you can. And if it's later in the year, great. If it's next year, that's also great. You cannot put yourself in jeopardy. It's just it's not worth it, Ron. You know, this is a wonderful thing to do. Right. It's a wonderful thing to do, but the important thing is you're healthy. Once you've worked that out and the doctor says to you, there's no physiological reason why you shouldn't do this, then go ahead and do it. But if he says you're really risking things now, you need to have a real long conversation with yourself.
Yeah, well, that's true.
What does your wife say?
That I get.
What does your wife say?
You met her. I mean,
I did.
She's determined. She's as determined as I am, and she's quiet about it. But you know that when I've talked to her,
the dangerous ones always are. By the way, Ron, we're quiet about it.
We've communicated a lot about this, and she is very positive and says you do whatever you need to do. I support you, and the whole family does.
Yes, sir.
But great. Don't feel like you're letting anybody down.
You know what? You can't ask for more than that. You can't ask for more than that.
If you feel like just physically, you know, this is it. Yeah. She was like, "Damn, 600 miles? You kidding me already?" And she's like, "That's a huge accomplishment."
It is.
Why would you think that that's a disappointment? But it's me that is. I don't want to disappoint myself, and you know, I'm a pusher, and
totally understand.
But she is fine with whatever. I mean, the other day she was like, "Do you need me to come get you? Because I will." And I'm avoiding all that, but I'm pretty sure from what's today, Monday, I'm gonna go up to New York with these friends of mine that are coming through. We're gonna go to this other little festival thing, and I'm gonna use that time to kind of rest, wait on the results, and then whatever the results of the scan are will tell me, as you said, you know, what I need to do. If it's something that physiologically there's no reason why you can't do it, you're just going to have to deal with slower miles.
That's
or
right.
Maybe do something different. But if it's a partial tear or a separation of some ligament or something like that, I'm probably going to have to bag it.
Oh dear. Well, it's a shame. You know, you were always one of my, not favourites to get there, but one of my ones that I thought there's nothing going to stop this guy. And yet an injury can stop you just like that. It does show you how fickle the trail can be to you, isn't it, really? And
well, it is.
Yeah. You know what? I admire you for being so resilient about it and still staying there, because some people will tend to go home pretty quickly, and then it becomes much easier to give up once you're at home. So I think you're probably doing the right thing waiting for these results.
Well, if I could get a riding lawnmower to take me to Katahdin, I would ride it. I mean, I'd go in a Walmart shopping cart buggy. Listen, I want to finish.
I got that impression. But look, stay in touch. Let me know what happens.
And I appreciate you reaching out.
If you want to talk through it off microphone, I'm always happy to do it at any stage. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You got it. I appreciate it, brother.
Take it easy.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. So that's it. We've caught up with our whole crew. I wanted you to hear the long version of Ron's story because, believe me, when I saw him in Damascus, he was on top of the world. He'd had in Damascus plenty of niggles, but he smiled through it all and was clearly having the time of his life. I could not believe it when he texted me and told me his news. But having got to know the guy a little bit in my conversations with him, I'm certainly not counting Ron out in my assessment of where we all are. As we heard, 17 individuals set out this year with dreams of having their own Katahdin moment, whether it was on Katahdin or Springer or Harper's Ferry or any point in between. The most important thing is each of our class shared that goal. By my reckoning, as of Wednesday, June the 14th, we still have through hiking dreams intact for Jessica Lang-Wright, Dale Shotkoski, Joanne Flagg, Mary Marks, and Wiley, her dog, of course, plus Nancy Farrell, Mark Carpenter, Brian Robbins, and I'm still going to count him in, Ron Ward. Also, even though it's not a calendar year through, Steve Noda is on track to finish what he started last year. So I reckon we're at about 50%. That is not at all bad. I hope you've enjoyed this extensive roundup because I wanted to put down a marker and see where everybody is, kind of putting them all in perspective. We're back next week with another really special show, so I look forward to sharing that with you. Until then, I'll see you next week.